Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. We are going to wait 1 or 2 minutes before we start the webinar. Thank you. Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Amr Fayyad, and I'm a National Program Leader at the Plant Systems Production Division at NEFA. I would like to welcome you all to today's webinar on the methyl bromide transition RFA for fiscal year 2023. The webinar will be recorded. Please make sure your microphone is muted. If you need any Zoom tech support, please call 1-888-799-0125, option 2. Throughout the presentation, you may type your questions in the chat box. Slides and the recording from this webinar will be posted to NEFA's website at a later date. In accordance with Federal Civil Rights Law and U.S. Department of Agriculture Civil Rights Regulations and Policies, the USDA, its agencies, offices and employees and institutions participating in or administering USDA programs are prohibited from discriminating based on race, color, national origin, religion, sex, gender identity, including gender expression, sexual orientation, disability, age, marital status, family parental status, income derived from a public assistance program, political beliefs, or reprisal or retaliation for prior civil rights activity in any program or activity conducted or funded by USDA. If you need information regarding persons who require alternative means of communication, or if you need information regarding how to file a program discrimination complaint, this slide includes the contact information. And USDA is an equal opportunity provider, employer, and lender. For additional information regarding this non-discrimination statement, the link is included on this slide. Again, I would like to welcome you all for today's webinar. I am Amr Fayyad, and I am a plant pathologist by training, and I am a national program leader in the Plant Systems Production Division at the Institute of Food Production and Sustainability. And I am the national program leader managing the methyl bromide transition program at NEFA. And I would like to invite my colleague, Mr. Jesse Ostrander, to introduce himself. Jesse.
Yes, hello everyone. I am Jesse Ostrander, and I'm a program specialist to assist Amr in administrating methylbromide transitions program. I'm also a plant pathologist by training. And I will be assisting Amer with the presentation today by monitoring your questions in the chat and dropping in some helpful links while he gives the presentation.
Thank you very much, Jesse. If you need to contact Jesse or myself, we have our emails and phone numbers listed on this slide. So what we will do today is I will give you an overview of MIFA. I will describe briefly the program, the methylbromide transition program, and talk about the request for application details, go over the proposal evaluation process, and end with additional information and resources. Starting with the NIFA overview, NIFA, the National Institute of Food and Agriculture, is an extramural science funding agency within USDA's Research, Education, and Economics mission area. NIFA invests in and supports initiatives that ensure the long-term viability of agriculture, and NIFA provides funding and strategic leadership for programs that ensure groundbreaking discoveries in agriculture-related sciences and technologies reach the people who can put them into practice. NIFA programs cover a wide range of topics, ranging from advanced technologies to animals, business and economy, natural resources, education, environment, farming and ranching, human sciences, food science, food and nutrition security, international and plant-related topics. If you need to find more information regarding these programs and topics, I would invite you to visit the NIFA website, or you can always send me an email or send Jesse an email as well. Moving on to the main purpose of today's webinar is to go over the methylbromide transition program. The primary goal and objective of the methylbromide transition, or MBT program, is to support the discovery and implementation of practical pest management alternatives to methylbromide. The methylbromide transition program seeks to solve pest problems in key agricultural production and post-harvest management systems, processing facilities, and transport systems for which methylbromide has been withdrawn or withdrawal is imminent. The methylbromide transition program addresses the immediate needs and the costs of transition that have resulted from the scheduled phase out of methylbromide. The program focuses on integrated commercial scale research on methylbromide alternatives and associated extension activity that will foster the adoption of these solutions. Projects funded by the program cover a broad range of new methodologies, technologies, systems, and strategies for controlling economically important pests for which methylbromide has been the only effective pest control option. Alternatives need to be effective and economical. All proposals must include a description of the economic analysis of costs and efficacy of implementing the new replacement technology. Applications submitted to the methylbromide transition program must incorporate appropriate integrated pest management, or IPM, concepts of prevention, avoidance, monitoring, and suppression of pest populations. The methylbromide transition program solicits applications that address system solutions or strategic, meaning multi-tactic approaches, rather than focusing on any single tactic to replace methylbromide. A goal of the MBT program is to demonstrate that performance of alternatives is consistent over several production cycles and is technically and economically feasible when scaled up from research plots to commercial scale. Regarding eligibility for this program, applications may only be submitted by US colleges and universities. This slide lists the eligible entities, and award recipients may subcontract to organizations not eligible to apply, provided such organizations are necessary for the conduct of the project. Again, eligibility is limited to US universities and colleges. For this RFA for fiscal year 2023, project types supported are extension projects and integrated projects. So again, in the next couple slides, I'm going to be describing what the integrated projects are and what the extension-only projects are. Starting with integrated projects. These projects focus on research for new alternatives and extension to encourage adoption and implementation of methylbromide alternatives. Integrated project applications must identify and incorporate both research and extension goals into the proposed project. As a general guideline, no more than 2/3 of the project's budget should be devoted to either function. Extension efforts, such as field demonstrations, grower trials, workshops, and distributed information should result in commercial awareness, understanding, and adoption of new technology and alternatives to methylbromide fumigation. Economic analysis of the proposed new strategy must be an integral part of the project. Regarding extension-only projects, extension-only projects increase the levels of adoption and implementation of pest management strategies by producers and growers. Extension-only projects facilitate the adoption and implementation of practices that will result in effective management of pests without the use of methylbromide and will lead to measurable behavior changes in the identified audience or stakeholder group. Project proposals may include development of extension materials and information delivery systems for outreach efforts, conducting field scale or on-farm demonstrations, or delivery of IPM extension outreach and training. Extension-only projects include an economic analysis of the proposed new strategy as an integral part of the project, and analysis of target population risk perception and economic constraints to adoption are required for all extension-only projects. Regarding cost sharing or matching, matching is required. Applicants must provide matching contributions at the minimum on a dollar-for-dollar basis for all federal funds awarded under this program. Non-federal matching funds may include in-kind support. NIFA may waive the matching funds requirement for a grant if one of the two apply. So if one of the following two conditions apply, NIFA may waive the matching requirement. These include the results of the project, while of particular benefit to a specific agricultural commodity, are likely to be applicable to agricultural commodities generally, or the project involves a minor commodity, the project deals with scientifically important research, and the grant recipient is unable to satisfy the matching funds requirement. I'm going to move on to talk specifically about the application details and the required documents. The RFA is available online on the NIFA website, also on grants.gov. You can follow the link on this slide. As a reminder, the application deadline is 5 p.m. Eastern Time, February 13, 2023, and applications must be submitted through grants.gov. Total funding available in fiscal year 2023 for this program is about $1.9 million available to states. Program code is 112.C, and the maximum funding per award is $500,000. As you submit your application, make sure you include the program code 112.C to make sure we receive the application properly. Key documents include project summary or abstract, project narrative, bibliography or reference list, data management plan, logic model chart, and additional documents that you can find in the RFA, but also in the NIFA grants application guide. Regarding the project narrative, the narrative is limited to 18 pages with 1.5 spacing, using 12-point times New Roman font, and includes the project narrative includes text, figures, and tables. Tables may be single-spaced, and the font size for tables should be no smaller than 11 points times New Roman. Applications exceeding the page limitation will be returned without review. So this page limitation will be strictly enforced. Regarding the data management plan, investigators must provide a detailed up to 2 pages of business and management plan, including expected data type, data format, data storage and preservation, data sharing, protection and public access, roles, and responsibilities. You may consult the link on the slide regarding the data management plan, and I believe my colleague Jesse has been sharing some of these links on the chat as well. NIFA only accepts electronic submissions of applications. You can also, again, consult the NIFA Grants Application Guide following the link on this slide. Application documents must be in portable document format or PDF format to be accepted by NIFA, including the narrative and budget justifications. Grants.gov may allow other formats, but NIFA does not. Do not use a third-party PDF builder, but again, make sure your documents are in a PDF, a portable document format. Moving on to proposal evaluation process. Proposals are assigned for a review to at least 3 reviewers with expertise in the proposed topic. Reviewers will produce individual reviews of each proposal, evaluating the strengths and weaknesses. These written reviews are used to begin panel discussions with other reviewers serving on the peer review panel. And through these discussions, the peer review panelists come to consensus on the final rating and ranking of proposals. Moving on to evaluation criteria, we use 3 criteria to evaluate your proposals, and these include the proposal technical merit and quality, qualifications of project personnel, adequacy of facilities and project management, and project relevance. Regarding the proposed technical merit and quality, this criterion will be used to assess the likelihood that the proposal will have an impact upon and advance the goals of the methylbromide transition program. Some of the elements that will be considered include the description and documentation of project activities and outcomes, the description of the proposed implementation of methylbromide alternatives and the appropriate extension activities for adoption of the alternatives, and formula extension and economic analysis, and the conceptual soundness of the proposed approach, including appropriate research hypotheses. This criterion also includes the description of the suitability, feasibility, originality, and innovation of the proposed approach, procedures, or methodologies, description of potential commercial applications with costs, including the transition costs to the proposed alternative methods, and the inclusion of a comparison of the cost and efficacy of the commercial use quantity of methylbromide that might be replaced by the alternative methods. This criterion also includes preliminary data that demonstrate feasibility of the proposed research, and properly designed economic analysis, the level of scientific originality, and risk-reward balance that indicate a high probability of project success, and again, description of the suitability and feasibility of the data management plan. The second criterion is the qualifications of project personnel, adequacy of facilities, and project management. And this criterion relates to the adequacy of the number and qualifications of key personnel who will plan and carry out the proposed projects, as well as the institutions' capability to perform the project. These elements include qualification of applicant, individual or team, the institutional capacity and competence, and the capacity to support personnel, facilities, instrumentation, and the appropriate timelines and key milestones to complete the objectives on a scheduled and administer and manage the project partnerships, collaborations as well. The third criterion is the project relevance, and the following criteria will be used to assess the likelihood that the proposal will address the needs of commodities that are impacted by the loss of methyl bromide and will advance goals of the methyl bromide transition program. These include the adequate documentation that the project is directed towards specific research and or extension program area priority identified in this RFA, the description and documentation of stakeholder needs for the proposed work, suitable and feasible plan and methods for evaluating success of project activities and for documenting potential impact or impacts with measurable short and midterm outcomes, and the description of the proposals planned for adoption and implementation of results generated by the project, and description of cost-effective approaches and criteria to measure and assess the adoption, implementation, and potential impact or impacts of the project. In terms of the timeline for the competitive program, on average, a competitive program takes about 3 to 5 months from the proposal due date to an award being made to an institution. This includes the time the RFA is open to receive, from the time the RFA is published to closing date, the proposal review, and the award processing. We will keep you updated as much as possible. However, we really ask for your patience because this process takes time to go through the review and award process. If you would like to get information regarding previously funded projects under this program, I would like to invite you to check the current research information system page, or the CRIS page. The link is also included on this slide. And you can search by methyl bromide alternatives, and so on. But we also included the actual link to all the funded projects so far. So if you click the link below the table under CRIS search results for MBT, you will access the abstracts of all the proposals we have funded. An alternative way to find projects that have been funded through the methyl bromide is to visit the NIFA data gateway and also perform or conduct a search using the terms methyl bromide alternatives. Regarding the upcoming events, NIFA event, I would invite you to check the NIFA events calendar for upcoming deadlines, meetings, and webinars, nifa.usa.gov/events. For information on upcoming requests for applications and to check the release calendar date, please check also nifa.usa.gov/upcoming-RFA-calendar. This slide contains additional resources. So from funding opportunities to competitive grants flowchart, NIFA grant resources, the NIFA policy guide, information on indirect costs, and a guide for preparation and submission of NIFA applications via grants.gov. And again, the CRIS link information on awarded grants as well. So you can visit any of these links and get additional information. And before I turn the floor to questions, I would like to also remind you that if you have any questions, any comments, so please feel free to email me or call me, and also email or call Jesse as well. With this, I am going to unshare my screen and open the floor for questions. Thank you very much. So if you have any question, please feel free to type it into the chat. And if you don't think of a question right now, again, you can always email Jesse and I, and we would be happy to respond with additional information or clarification. I'm not seeing any question in the chat. Again, as you think of any question or you need any clarification, feel free to email me or email Jesse, and we will be happy to respond. I think we will stay for a couple more minutes in case any question needs to be addressed. Otherwise, I would like to thank you all for your participation. I see one question about resubmissions. So thank you for this question. Resubmissions are allowed for the program, and the applicants must address, as you resubmit, the applicant must address the comments from the reviewers from the previous submission.
There's also a question about the text size being described as 11 point Times New Roman in the RFA.
Oh, thank you, Jesse. So for the project narrative, the font size is 12 Times New Roman. However, for tables, you can use a smaller font, but not smaller than 11 Times New Roman. Jesse, do you see other questions? I don't see other questions on the Q&A or on the chat.
I have seen no other questions. No. We just got one.
Yeah, Andres, thank you for the question on how what pages or what parts of the proposal do not count toward the 18-page limit. So the project narrative is limited to 18 pages. So for example, the logic model does not count toward the 18 pages. The data management plan does not count toward the 18-page limit. So only the project narrative is limited to 18 pages. And you can include the data management plan and the logic model as attachment when you prepare your application. And if you need any specific question on that, please feel free to email me and Jesse, and we will be happy to respond. Yes, appendices and letters of support, CV, and all these supporting documents are do not count toward the 18-page limit.
I might just add that it does begin the description of what constitutes as the project narrative on page 16 of the RFA, which is both in the slides and in the link is in the chat. but I'll also paste that link as an answer to the last question that was asked.
Thank you, Jesse, for adding this information. So on page 16 of the RFA, you can the description of the project narrative starts, and it talks about including the response to previous reviews if applicable, and the introduction, the rationale, the significance, the objectives, the approach, the project timeline, and information on cooperation and institutional involvement. And again, as I mentioned, the data management plan and the logic model do not count toward the 18-page limit. And you can include it in the project narrative as a summary of previous work on methylbromide by, so there will be a summary of your previous work and justification for centers of excellence if requested. Thank you for all these questions. Again, if you think of questions that we don't have any specific margins required by the RFA, but we would recommend using the for lack of better words, the regular margin. So, but if you can send me an email and I can address it specifically. And I believe the default margins are 1 inch. So we use the default margins. But again, feel free to contact me later if you have any worry about using the default margin. Okay, so there's a question on the selection of panels and reviewers. So in terms of selection for panelists, every NIFA program will have a panel manager, an expert in the field that will assist the NIFA staff in managing the panel review process, and in collaboration with the NIFA staff and the panel manager, outside experts in the field will be selected to serve as panel reviewers, and those reviewers are selected again based on their expertise. They are selected to make sure that there is no conflict of interest between the reviewers and the applicants and everyone listed as co-PD or collaborator on the application. Also, we make sure that different expertise, different types of institutions are represented on the panel. So we try to make the panel as balanced as possible, taking into consideration, again, geographic distribution, race, gender, ethnicity, institutional types, and also type of academic or professional experience. So our panels are very well balanced, and we take great care to ensure no biases and no conflict of interest in these panels. And these are required by all panels at NITA. Thank you again for all your questions. So I don't think we missed any of your questions in the Q&A or the chat. So thank you all for attending today's webinar. We really appreciate your participation. And as a reminder, if you think of any question or need any clarification, feel free to email us, and we will be glad to try to answer your questions and your concerns. Thank you very much. Have a great afternoon.